So, in a post from this week, an old friend um, said, "I knew you when I knew you before you were a woman." And I really just like this is sticking in my head because it goes to show so much we don't know about one another and how much language matters to being able to speak about ourselves. And so I'm going to answer here a question that I really wish people would ask me when they asked me what it means to be third gender or non binary. Because what usually happens is that people find out and they immediately launch into one of two things. One is to say, oh, it's so hard for me. You have to make room for me and understand that, it's really hard and I have an old brain. I get it. Me too. Um, and the second is, oh, I have a non-binary friend, and they, and go into a long story about someone else that they know that proves maybe to me that they're like woke or whatever the thing is. So both of those responses don't feel good to me because it's about you instead of about me. And we're literally talking about something really treasured and precious and mystical about me, my third genderedness, and we're opening up this pathway to something that really makes me have a lot of feelings in this world and is really, an intense experience with actually a deeply rooted lineage in my life. And I like to say this way, I heard from a band, and I'll link to them when I remember the song name, but she says, uh, transgender is not a new fad. Transgender is us connecting to our ancestral memory. And that's exactly what it feels like to me. Like, homie nailed it. And how do we return to things like that in the wake of so much information and how we should be happening in our lives all the time? And for me, what that path kind of looked like, and that's the really vulnerable thing that I want to share, even though it's taken me 2 minutes and 36 seconds to get here. The really vulnerable thing I want to share today is that when I was a child, I thought I was going to grow up to be a man. I didn't just think it, I believed it and knew it to be a fact. When I was a child, I knew something was wrong with me. That's the best language I had for it as a child. Something's wrong with me. Something's different, as if being different is wrong, which is something we're taught culturally, I think. And it's part of that us and them tribalism thing that, if you know me, I'm pretty much against. But I thought something was wrong with me. And so I developed my own language around it. And that language I developed was that I'm an alien. Pink star kind. This pervaded my life in fundamental ways, kept me separated from people in fundamental ways. I was set up to feel as though I could never be understood because I could never put language or words around what I was feeling. And what that amounted to is just that I wasn't attracted sexually in the same ways that was shown on media, talked about in my friend circles, exhibited on a daily basis in the world. I didn't feel the same about, the gendering of activities and clothing. And I felt that was, I felt the gendering of activities and clothes was as crazy as the, alt-right types think being third gender is. For me, I can relate to them on that way because for me, it's as crazy to gender clothing as it is for them to recognize me as a third gender person. And, but I'm able to put that aside and understand contextually, culturally where they're coming from, because inherently I believe in the value of all living beings and that all information is essential. And as soon as we stop sharing information with each other, that's when we're headed down a really dark hole. Information wants to be free. Kid of the 90s. I say it all the time. Okay, anyways. So this alien thing was unhealthy for me. My homies. It was not good. And I spent a lot of years self-hating because I didn't have the language I wasn't equipped with the language to describe what I was feeling. I wasn't given the historical context to know that what I was feeling and experiencing actually is very normal. And, I can get into that aspect more, but also I just really recommend people reading Leslie Feinberg, because they just speak so beautifully on all of this and have so powerful much to teach. Hi, everybody, meet Walter. He's Hickey Rare. But I didn't have language. So then, like maybe a decade, 12 years ago, somewhere in that space, I came across this word non-binary. And I'd tried on gender fluid and I'd tried on androgynous, and they weren't quite right fit for me. In a feeling space, how do you feel? What word do you assign to your feelings? It's a really arbitrary thing in the long run, but non-binary just really hit. I think it appealed to the logician, the scientist in me. It appealed to my philosophy of, breaking down binaries. I was already really strongly into that like dialectical space. And so it just felt like, oh man, I'm starting to feel like kind of normalized. And so, as that progressed, non-binary is no longer the term that I prefer, mostly because it's like a political trigger word. I didn't choose that, but here we are. So, fine. I'm not clinging to a label. Actually, I'm clinging to a factual reality of my existence that I'm trying through a developing and evolving language to explain and present and enjoy, and not be an alien and not be an outsider, and to be a part of this rich, incredible fabric of culture that we have, that by being divisive and by being hateful is hurting all of us. It doesn't just hurt one person, it hurts all of us. So my current language that I prefer is actually third gender. And I'm so open to other words and other languages for that, because in the long run, it's not important what we call it. It's important that we recognize that something about our bodily gender is connected deeply to our hormonal infrastructure of our neurological systems. And it's not as simple as a biological thing, that all the hormones, all the brain chemistry, the brain structures, the brain setup, the feelings evoked, the ephemeral quality of the spiritual, if I can even add that in there, all combines to how we experience our gender. And in the same way that I'm taking religion and God and spirituality and saying, I'm not accepting an authority on this anymore, but rather going to investigate on my own terms. Also, that's what's happened in my life with my gender. I just don't have a tendency to accept carte blanche what is handed to me from a previous generation. Do I look at it, examine it, analyze it? Yes, it's one of the great joys of my life, but I do not accept it. I base it against what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, how I synthesize all of the information, and what my personal experience is, because that's the unique thing. Every story's been told and all of it's already been done, and Mark Twain and da. But what keeps me living, breathing, making art, and looking at yours is the fact that this inner experience is the original thing, is the very original thing. And that most of us are just kind of like paper dolls, with a cutout dress or a cutout suit that we put on. And that comes with a really convenient way to be in the world and be safe. Whereas for me, putting on a third gender, and it's a little less safe, to be honest with you. And I think that's silly. I think we should all be safe. We should all be able to experiment, and we should all enjoy and relish exploration in this world, in this great unknown, and maybe take like a minute of just humility and humbleness in the face of the billions of stars and vastness of space and the intricate infrastructure of microorganisms that make up our body, and just be curious. That gets me going. And so to that person who said, when I knew you, you were a woman, my dear, I was never a woman. It was just the only language that was assigned to me for who I was. And it took me a long time to come to a space where I had the courage and character to be able to speak about it in a loving way. And I don't every day. Sometimes I'm mad. But today's okay. And I was always third gender. I just didn't know. It took me some time. And for everyone listening, thank you so much when you do. The next time you meet a third gender person or anyone outside of your wheelhouse, don't stop and tell a story about yourself. Ask them about their experience. Learn about them. Let it be all about them. Put yourself aside for a second and be curious, be an observer, be a good listener. And next time I see you, I can't wait to hear what you think all about it.